I don't usually do this in games, but I was near 100% completing Bowser's Fury, which requires 100 cat shines. All I needed was one more cat shine. However, that last cat shine was not available to get at the moment. That meant waiting on my end. To pass the time, I decided to find a good place to take a photo with the snapshot mode. Here you can see me trying to align Bowser Jr. perfectly next to Mario, as I get a nice family picture. How wonderful. But while pissing about, a personal interest caught my eye. A mountain far off in the distance. Something about it fascinated me as soon as I saw it, and it was calling to me to get closer. So I decided to inspect. Off I went to the highest point of the game, Crisb Climb Castle. At the top I could see the mountain in its full wonder. Even after getting closer and viewing this thing from the top, it was still towering over me, really selling the size of this thing. I don't know how to explain how this made me feel without getting ridiculed, but this behemoth of a mountain made me feel valiant. It evoked a feeling I had been emoting the entire game, reaching higher grounds to achieve assurance. Only difference being this mountain was a bigger foe than anything I've ever conquered in a game. I hope this somewhat puts in perspective how I felt. It was encouraging almost. This is also to contextualize Bowser Fury's biggest success, its immersion. Swimming around with Plessie, listening to the music, taking it all in. I love these moments. Remember how in Sunshine you could see the different places you had been visiting? I used to dream of the idea that one day, instead of just entering a stage like a level, you could just swim over there. Well, Bowser Fury accomplished that. Here I'm at Mount Magmeow, getting my last cat shine on the island. It's one of the final places I went to at the end of the game. And way off in the distance, what can you see? The first place you begin the game at. And now I can just swim over there if I want to. The feeling of seeing how far you come, cleaning up this place of all the black goo and making all the lighthouse shine because of you is an impeccable feeling. It's truly an adventure. You may wonder what this video is about. Clearly it's about Bowser's Fury, but what will you see me talk about in this video? I've basically wanted to discuss a game in depth for a very long time now. I love watching this craft be done by others and I wanted to take a shot at it myself. Bowser's Fury felt like a natural pick, and that's mainly because I played it so much, and because the game is not as complicated to talk about as some other games I may want to go in depth about in the future. So yeah, that's why I want to start the video off the way I did, because you will not see me talk about my feelings and emotions as much anymore. Rather, I will be focusing on the game in an analytical point of view, and if that doesn't really sound like something for you, then by all means, continue watching. Following a love game like Odyssey must be terrifying. You're not only dealing with your own worries and pressures of delivering, but also a massive fan base of one of the most loved gaming IPs. It must be daunting for everyone in that team. Therefore, I suspect developers were thinking to themselves, what were Odyssey's positives and negatives, and how could we improve on those qualities? I can only suspect this is the thought process that goes into continuing a game in a long-running series, but I can never know that. The reason I'm suspecting this idea is because there seems to be clear signs of furthering ideas Odyssey came with. Let's begin by asking the question, what made Odyssey work? Well, the freedom. Whenever you collected a power moon, instead of throwing you out of an area, players would be allowed to continue on without any interference. Now how could Bowser's Fury then possibly continue this idea? Well, you see, whereas Odyssey had numerous kingdoms to explore and get power moons, these kingdoms require players to leave the set place they were in, which involved watching numerous loading screens. Bowser's Fury fixed this by making all the different islands you go to in the game be located in the same world. Now you can simply swim using Plessie or teleport to go anywhere you want to on the map. This also solved the issue of immersion. When you're in Bowser's Fury, you're only there and you are never forced to go anywhere else. Odyssey's kingdom never felt connected. They felt like places with no internal link to each other, which was always a huge reason I never truly felt immersed in that game. I will admit that this is not as huge of an improvement as Odyssey's freedom in exploration, but it's sufficient. And now that I have mentioned it, let's quickly discuss Plessie. After beating the first area of the game and got more distant islands to visit, you'll receive your companion Plessie, a dinosaur dude. When sat on, Plessie will be controllable and he will act as your main transportation in the game. His insane speed will make it much easier for the player to get from island to island, and impressively, and someone needs to be credited for this, Plessie's AI is designed to spawn close to Mario whenever he's close to the ocean, which is so incredibly useful. Never does the action of running around looking for something to do stop, because Plessie will always be there ready to take you further on your adventure. I believe if future Mario games decide to go big open world like Bowser's Fury, that a companion similar to Plessie has to come back. It's amazing how simple yet integral Plessie's design is to this world. Without him, the game would have fallen apart. I will discuss Plessie's design later on in this video, because he actually does have some other things going for it. Something that Odyssey improved on, which sadly Bowser's Fury didn't take note of, was Mario's moveset. Naming and discussing every function of every move you can do in Odyssey would take up 20% of this video. There's a reason Odyssey became such a favorite amongst speedrunners, because Mario controls spectacularly. From just one jump alone, you have numerous options in how you want to continue it. Sadly, Bowser's Fury misses the mark. His control scheme is taken straight out of 3D World, only changes being he has a crown pound jump, which allows for greater height than your normal jump, and he also has a mid-air roll, which allows recovering back from misplaced jumps, both of which have been taken straight out of Odyssey. Mario and the camera can also be controlled in now 360 degrees, instead of the strict directions you had in 3D World, which is an appropriate change to have. Now, this moveset works completely fine in 3D World, because that game is a level-based Mario game. Bowser's Fury, with its emphasis on freedom, why have it? Unless if you have the cat suit, moving around with base Mario is really boring. I get that Bowser's Fury was a celebration of 3D World and therefore used a lot of assets from that game. But I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that the moves you perform in Fury will be as entertaining if Mario moved like he did in 64, Sunshine or Odyssey. The long jump, for example, a move that became a staple ever since it was first introduced back in 64 because of its great vertical distance it traveled, has now become a pathetic jump that adds nothing to his kit anymore. His triple jump is gone, his fun roll from Odyssey is gone. Beside his mid-air roll, he really doesn't have anything to do in the air, unlike Sunshine's flood or Galaxy's spin or Odyssey's cap. He's boring to play around with. New to the controls itself is Bowser Jr. himself. By holding down R, you have the ability to command or control Jr. in any directions you want. On handheld, you use the touchscreen. Bowser Jr.'s AI can also move independently if you put him to help you a lot or a little. When controlling/commanding him, you can make him pick up coins, catch shots, power-ups, and make him kill enemies. I can't really say that much about Jr. I haven't played the 2-player mode yet because all my friends hate me, so I don't know what he adds there. I just know he doesn't add much in a single player run. Take these graffiti question marks. They can spit out a power-up, but only if you command Jr. himself to paint these vaults. What does that add that Mario couldn't do himself? It's also too much work to control Jr. with the gyro aim, commanding him to do something that you can easily do yourself. Especially if you're in a battle against some enemies. The time it takes you, the player, to kill a group of enemies is far easier done than asking Jr. to do it. I do appreciate the fact that Nintendo allows you to change Bowser Jr.'s help to none, a little, or a lot, based on your preferences. Nintendo does usually not allow players to tweak around the game to a setting that suits them more, and I really don't know why. They don't even do a good job of that in this game, but we'll take what we can get. I'm scrambling my head trying to figure out what Nintendo wanted with this guy, and my only conclusion is it's meant to help kids. In that aspect, it may work. I can't really say cause I'm not a kid. I actually have some more noteworthy negatives with Junior, but I'll talk about that much later on in this video. For now, let's try and discuss the power-ups found in the game. I need to again highlight that Bowser's Fury is an open world game, a genre that emphasizes freedom and exploration. Therefore, you hope the power-ups encompass that design principle. Unfortunately, only one power-up does that, the cat suit. The cat suit allows players to crawl onto any walls in the game and cat dive diagonally downward onto/into anything. These two moves make exploration a blessing. It makes you look at the game completely differently, asking yourself at any point if this wall can possibly get you faster to your next objective. However, the Fire Flower, the Boomerang Flower, and the Super Leaf do not do any of this. They are so situational that the question should be asked, what was the point of them? I assume they wanted to give players more ways to engage with a level, but these power-ups are useless compared to the cat suit. This problem was not as big in 3D World because some levels would encourage players to use certain power-ups. Very rarely does Bowser's Fury tempt the player to just use a fire mushroom, and I don't know why. It could have easily made for some interesting challenges. The propeller box is a better power-up than all the other power-ups in the game. But it's not even a power-up. The propeller box is a support item like the Ice Skate or Cat Piranha Plant. You're not able to store it like the other power-ups, and if you ride Plessie or try to carry any item, you will lose your propeller box immediately. But yet, exploration with the propeller box is far more unique than any other power-up in the game, besides the cat suit. I would often try and hold onto the propeller box as long as I could because it made the world more fun to explore. And that's only the first problem with the power-ups. There's a much larger issue at hand. You know why they allow players in 3D World to only carry one extra power-up throughout a level? It will be so players would still only have a slight chance of survival. Bowser's Fury goes against this with all its power. You're not only allowed to carry one of every single mushroom, flower, leaf and bell in the game, you're allowed to hold 5 of each, which means every time you're close to death, just take one out of the 30 power-ups you have and you're good, sweetheart. Where's the challenge? The only time you will die in this game is by lava, because for some reason lava kills you immediately, or if you intentionally try to make it harder for yourself. And I hate trying to make a game harder for myself. I'll admit that Mario games are not meant to be difficult, but I would still argue you should be appropriately punished if you fail, which usually means in Mario games that you lose whatever power-up you're using at the moment, making it harder to go through the rest of the level you're currently in. But if you have 30 different power-ups to go through, then what is the punishment? This idea has discombobulated me numerous times, cause I truly have zero ideas in what they were thinking with this. But I will not stand for it. And that's not where it ends, because getting power-ups is so incredibly easy. You get power-ups from question mark blocks, bushes, trees, bubbles, graffitis, crates, roulette blocks every time you get 100 coins. It's so pathetic. Like, if you die in this game, you should feel embarrassed, lad, because this game holds your hand to the finish line. I'm so done with the power-ups in this game. And I just want to briefly discuss the resolution, the performance, and some of the system settings in this game, how it runs both when docked and in handheld mode. I just want to make a brief disclaimer and tell you my tech knowledge is very limited. I'm just a skinny fat guy who studies game design primarily. But I feel it's important to bring it up here, because Bowser's Fury has both some very strong positives and negatives that need to be highlighted. Just remember that what I say may be absolute bollocks. First of all, the fact that the Switch can run this is impressive. As a guy who grew up with the Game Boy and the DS, seeing an open world 3D Mario game being played on a little square box does impress me a lot. And most of the time, it's very stable. At docked, the game will run around 720p with 60 FPS, and when handheld it will also run around 720p but with 30 FPS instead. The fact that 3D World can be played 1080p with 60 FPS docked and 720p with 60 FPS on handheld shows that Bowser's Fury does take a lot of power to run. And that's most likely because of the draw distance in the game. You can see islands in the distance losing their fidelity, but luckily there are no visible pop-ins in the game, unlike Sonic Frontiers. And when I say no visible pop-ins, I basically mean you had to be looking for them to find them, but they never just show up in your way, which is again impressive. Problems do occur when we talk frame rate. The game can dip sometimes dramatically. I found these moments most often when a big group of enemies were together, or when the game had to render in big particle effects. Other than that, it worked well. It was fine. Yeah, it worked well. But here comes one of my grievances with this game. And it's a problem that is not exclusive to Bowser's Fury, but all of Nintendo's games. System settings are nowhere to be found. That includes button configuration, a system option implemented in most video games to make the medium as accessible as it can be. It's just gone! Different screen ratios are not a thing, neither is adjusting the brightness, and HUD elements cannot be moved around or just be completely hidden from the screen. You only have options like camera sensitivity, which barely works, horizontal and vertical camera can be turned on and off, 2-player mode can be activated anytime, and your save files can be loaded and saved. That's everything. Note this, kids, Nintendo hates options. Why did I ever buy a Switch or a Steam Deck? Let's leave all that behind and talk about the atmosphere found within Bowser's Fury, which is mostly attributed to the islands you visit in the game. Odyssey did a lot with its kingdoms. Even some of the themes attributed to some of these kingdoms that we have gone through in so many other Mario titles still felt fresh. Like the Sand Kingdom could be looked at like any other sand level we had gone through in past reiterations, but what I saw was a kingdom inhabited by a culture we had never seen before in the Mario series. The first time you come to the Sand Kingdom, the world has been transformed into a cold environment, and it's up to Mario to change it back to normal. You have an impact on the environment around you, which resonated greatly with me, cause it felt like I was really cleaning up after Bowser's destruction. And even then, Odyssey showed us worlds we had never seen before, like the Cap Kingdom, a place that felt like a fever dream, Metro Kingdom, a real-life New York City, and Luncheon Kingdom, a world made out of food. So I'll say, Odyssey definitely laid down the groundwork for Bowser's Fury to go even further with its connected open world. However, I cannot say they managed to do that. Mount Magmeow is the only one that comes to mind if I'm asked which island looks aesthetically different from everything Mario. I mean, a mountain shaped like a cat, covered with lava. Don't tell me that isn't special, but everything else in the game looks dull. They all have this, I guess, Atlantis feel about them. And I'm not just saying that because they rise up from the ocean, but also because some walls are covered in architectural images, which I assume is meant to show there was once an ancient civilization, or maybe it's a prophecy for what is to come. I really don't know. However, I do appreciate the details in that aspect. But they all look like boring grey Atlantis. None of them use different colors, they don't show any kinds of inhabitants living there, and besides the gameplay, they don't have any theme related to them. And just a quick note, I know that the entire theme of the game is cat inspired. This tree is a cat, this fence is a cat, this flower is a cat, these cats are cats, but that's like saying Mario Galaxy's theme was space. Yeah, obviously, but every planet you visited in that game managed to keep itself unique from the rest while still having an overlapping theme clue to the entirety of the game, that being space. There is cat architecture and enemies everywhere you go in Bowser's Fury, yes, but none of the islands you visit manage to keep themselves unique from the rest of the game, which I think is pretty bad, because it becomes an overall less memorable experience. Imagine if you were riding Plessie and you saw a distant island with a mysterious forest, invite the players to come and see what's on the inside. Or maybe we could get another rendition of the haunted Boo Mansions, or maybe another Bowser's Kingdom. But instead, it feels like they were purely interested in making islands with platform challenges instead of a world that felt alive almost. A world that would leave you guessing in what came next. You may not care about this, but I truly do. And I know Nintendo do as well, because they have done it before. Maybe time restraints played a factor into this, I don't know. But this subject is one of the reasons I can understand people would think this is just a little demo game that doesn't play a huge factor in the Mario series. I don't believe that myself, but I can definitely understand it, especially when the world feels so uninspired. Something I do like is the name of these islands. They're funny in the sense that almost all of them are cat themed, like Pounce Bounce Island, Claw Swipe Colosseum, Risky Whisker Island. My favorite one is probably the first island you land on in the game, First Step Island, which is meant to sound like first step, like the first people went to the moon. It's a clever trick on words, which I adore. They also just roll off the tongue nicely. They do this by using certain letters repeatedly, like the emphasis on the S in slip, skate, slope, or the C in crisp, climb, castle. They also do it by making the words almost rhyme to each other, like pounce, bounce, island, trickety, tower, risky whisker, island. It's not something I think a lot of people would care about when it comes to video game analysis. That's kind of sad, because that's how you end up with boring names in games like Sonic Frontiers, where bosses have just the most blatant names like Squid, Spider, Ninja, Red Pillar. This one is just called Tower. It sucks. So great attention to details in the names. Now, I had a long segment here where I was going to discuss the music in depth, but I realized something. I'm not qualified enough to do that. Even though I studied a bit of music theory in my life, I'm not the guy to come with my own ideas about the soundtrack, cause I'm simply not experienced enough for that subject. Which I find quite sad, cause I really want to talk about the music. But the reasoning for me not doing that is my disappointment in nowadays video essays. This is going to be a bit of a rant, apologies. My problem with creators talking about music these days is the lack of quality and depth they go into. And I'm guilty of this myself. I feel like our understanding of music are very limited. We can never discuss the music as in depth or detail as the things we do have a lot of knowledge about, like gameplay or story. We could just say, I like this or I don't like this, without no real understanding of why we believe that ourselves. I don't really want to bring up anything in my analytical videos that doesn't have a real argument behind it, because I want to stay somewhat logical. I also just think it's a bit boring. Maybe one day, when I feel I'm knowledgeable and confident enough to bring up some actual musical arguments, I will. And I don't believe other creators should stop doing this, because I deep down know why they want to discuss something as beautiful as music in video games or movies. Because when you find something gorgeous, you want to share with the world. I just don't feel comfortable sharing my bare bone reasoning for liking something when that foundation is just based on nothing. If you're interested in seeing some actual great video essays when it comes to music discussion in video games, movies and musicals, here are some people I can recommend you go watch. Davey Vask, Sideways, 8-Bit Music Theory and Charles Cornell. Not a lot of music experts are on YouTube, and those that are not always that entertaining. These people know their stuff and have great personalities and editing to go along with them. Just to make this segment not a complete void, here's my brief opinion about the music in Bowser's Fury. I like it. It does its job in being as weird as Mario's games are themselves, and I hope Nintendo continue using the composer for the game, Daisuke Matsuke, in future Mario projects. My only two problems with the music is firstly that too many islands and bosses that reuse music from Mario 3D World or even Bowser's Fury itself, which can make it feel a bit too unoriginal. And secondly, just like system options are lacking, audio options are non-existent. You're not allowed to control sound or music to a level that fits you, which again is stupid. That's it. Now let's move on. Speaking of worthless opinions, you know how Mario Odyssey made coins an actual fun aspect of a Mario game, unlike all the other titles? Basically, you could buy dumb fun costumes with the coins you collected throughout the game. It was a smart way of making players interact with the world even more now, added with the bonus that collecting or walking around with costumes was just simply fun. Well, coins are now worthless again. The only thing they do now is whenever you collect 100 coins, you get a random power-up, as if there already was enough power-ups you simply stumbled upon in this game. I get it will be difficult to add costumes onto different power-ups, but how about you could buy more stickers from Toadette, or maybe you could buy different colors or textures for the cat suit, just anything. I can only hope that the next Mario game brings this back. You may wonder what the long runtime for this video came from, and I've been waiting up until now to discuss the actual meat and potatoes of this video. You see, as we discussed with Odyssey, the greatness that came with the game was highly caused by the freedom in whatever mission you decide to do, but we haven't talked about the structure of the missions themselves. Odyssey's emphasis was always in its scope, the idea that a power moon could hide behind any rock or door, but that is also where Odyssey's biggest failure came along. Because the emphasis was on quantity, the quality of these missions were absent for most of the time. As annoying as it was to get kicked out of a stage in 64 or Sunshine, missions were exceedingly more interesting and varied than a lot of what Odyssey presented. Because this is a Bowser's Fury video, I do not want to go even more in details. If you're interested in getting a deep explanation, you can go and watch King K's retrospective on Odyssey. A lot of his negatives with that game are thoughts I share similar sentiment with. But the reason I bring up this point is to really hammer home one point. Bowser's Fury understands the idea of quality over quantity. Even though there are only 100 cat shines in the game to find, which any players can get within 2 hours, these cat shines exceed Odyssey in every way, while still respecting Odyssey's short mission structure. And I tend to look at every cat shine in this game. Yes, now you probably understand the length of this video. So you know what? Let's just begin. Appropriately, I would like to start with the most common cat shines. The 5 cat shards missions. The objective is to find 5 hidden cat shards at every island you visit throughout the game. There are 12 of these missions in total. I like these shines. They emphasize exploration in a game that's all about that. You know, there's a secret passageway, and there's a shard. There's an odd shadow on the floor. Look up, there's a shard. What's that? A pole bending over at 45 degrees? Can I walk up it? Yes you can, and there's a shard just for you, darling. It's a prize. It's a prize for players who engage with the world. The only time I can say it was poorly hidden was in Crisb Climb Castle's 3rd shard, where it's hidden in a little room all by itself. There's 0 indications that there is a room, and the only time you can see a visible entrance is when the camera is tilted at a strange low angle. They could easily fix this by having a bit of light illuminating from the entrance, or stick a window on the side of one of the walls, just anything. I think for new players, the cat shards act like a good introduction for every new island you go to. And when playing the game again, even with the knowledge of where most cat shards are hidden, I feel there's a genuine satisfaction in clearing everything out in a one quick swoop. I originally wrote very negatively in the previous script that the cat shards felt like padding, because they were so easy to collect. However, I do think it's good to have a consistent set of missions that players can easily get into. However, there is one problem. Remember when I said there were some more notable issues with Bowser Jr. that I was going to talk about? Well, here it is. When taking command of Jr., you can control or send him to grab up any cat shard he is in reach of. This doesn't really make sense at all, because there was a very clear reason for why you couldn't just command Jr. to get cat shines, because it would ruin a lot of gameplay scenarios, but here they just do it with no discernible reasons. I mean, what's the challenge here? Jumping over platforms or commanding me dog? This doesn't ruin the cat shard missions themselves, because a lot of the shards are hidden from the player's perspective, so you're not able to send Junior out to get it for you every time, so that saves it a bit. This is a good mission to have in the game. It's simple, yes, but I don't view that as a negative, because it's simple with the reason of making the player engage with the world more. Another prominent list of cat shines you'll be collecting throughout the game are the Make the Lighthouse Shine missions. These were quite hard to write about, because originally I thought these shines would be at every island in the game, like with the 5 cat shards, but apparently only 7 out of the 12 islands you visit have this particular mission. What confused me is the fact that these shines are always granted to you when you have gone through an entire stage, whether that be upwards or straight ahead. But then some missions act the exact same way, like the Make the Lighthouse Shine objectives. Mount Magmeow's second mission, called Atop Mount Magmeow, is a mission requiring you to travel to the summit of this mountain. The exact same thing as the Crisb Climb Castle's first mission, which is called Make the Lighthouse Shine, requiring you to climb to the peak of the tower, but apparently these missions are labeled separately. I didn't really know how to write this section, but I have an idea. I'll of course talk about all the Make the Lighthouse Shine missions, but I'll also include the cat shines found in Triggery Tower, first mission called So Close Yet So Far, and Mount Magmeow's second mission called Atop Mount Magmeow. I didn't include any missions from the islands Fort Flaptrap, Clawswipe Coliseum and Risky Whiskey Island, because not any of the catch shines found in those islands include a mission of you trying through one end of a level to the other, and that's mainly because these islands are made for boss/enemy battles. Now as said, these missions have a set destination you have to reach, but just like in 64, it can be approached in different ways. For example, in Pounce Bounce Island, you can choose to go the long beaten path set before you, but you can also do what I did and do a little detour with the help from the cat suit. This is great for one reason: experimentation in future playthroughs. Now, not all of these islands include such freedom. Some feel much more level-based than others, such being Slipskate Slope, Mount Magmeow, and Roiling Roller Island. Slipskate Slope's inclusion being a lot more offensive than the others. If it wasn't for the cat shards being there to collect, this would be straight up pathetic. If you're going to structure your missions as levels, then the focused platform needs to be a lot more engaging, which it simply isn't. A lot of the obstacles in your way are very easy to avoid if you choose to. Mount Magmeow handled this a lot better by having you to deal with rotating fire bars in tight sections and Cat Foster's constant circumventions while trying to control your switchboard. Mount Magmeow's problem stems in the fact that the lava in this game kills you immediately and resets you to the start of the island, making you retread everything. This wouldn't be so bad if climbing Mount Magmeow didn't take as long as holding your wet steamer fart in while having your parents-in-law over for lunch. I already don't know why lava one-hit kills ya, but having it reset all your progress, yeah. No, just add checkpoints, lad. But that's also why I ultimately believe Rolling Roller Island is the best out of these two. The platforming is concise and challenging, the enemy placements is also well handled, and even if you get a game over from the lava or whatever, the time to reach the top ain't as long and tedious as it was in Mount Magmeow. And that's because the speed at which the stage can be beaten is at your choosing. So yeah, overall, the Make the Lighthouse Shine missions are overall pretty engaging. The key to the cat shine is next on the chopping block, and this one is fairly easy to discuss. The objective of these missions are basically finding a key so you can open a cage containing a cat shine. When you have found said key, you basically have to carry them all the way over to said cage. At first hand, I thought these missions were gonna be a pain like in talking about paint dry with your grandma, but I found out how these missions could actually be slightly interesting. As of the creativity of the location these keys are hidden, I can't say they're blowing my mind, but where it gets kind of fun is taking said key back to your cage. As said with the other missions in the game, you can choose to go in the direction that was meant to be followed, or you can find a shortcut. All of the 5 key to the cat shine missions work like this, except one. We'll talk about that one later. One of the funniest shortcuts I found was in Rolling Roller Island. The cage containing one of the cat shines was situated at the start of the island, whereas the key was stuck on the very top of the level. Now I think it's supposed to go down the path you came, but if you use the Tanuki leaf, you can just fly the entire way down to the start, skipping all the needless platforming. Now as fun as this is to discover the first or second time you play this game, it does ruin substitute playthroughs, because even though I praised the Make the Lighthouse Shine mission for allowing players to jump over massive sections of the level you was playing, they would usually not let you skip the entire mission and just hand you over cat shine. And you know, the fun also came from experimentation. Every time you come back to playing this game, you find a new way to approach a mission. But that does not happen with the key to the cat shine missions. One skip and you're all done. There's one more offender here, and that is the key mission in Slipskate Slope. Whereas the other key missions would at least not bore you by just making you walk, that is the entire objective in Slipskate Slope's version. Take the key and start walking, you ungrateful peasant. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit mean. There are some enemies whom you can just run by with no problem. Yeah, it's a drag. It's a fine pair of missions. Not fantastic, not awful, just fine. Okay, we've been slightly pessimistic for some time now. Let's discuss a good mission. Fury Shadow / Fury Luigi is quite a cool mission. First of all, seeing a dark version of Luigi is pretty sweet. First time playing the game and seeing this gave me a nice grin on your lad's face. But the gameplay in this mission is also very well executed. The whole idea is taken from Mario Sunshine, when in that game you had to chase down Shadow Mario and spray him with your squirt gun. And that premise continues here. But additionally, you have a health bar of your Luigi, which always makes you aware of how many hits are left before you killed him. Just so you know, it takes 3 hits to disintegrate him. Now damaging Fury Luigi can be done in several ways. You can jump on him, cat swipe him, hit him with one of your fireballs / boomerangs, or use Plessie's giant fat belly to smoosh Fury Luigi like an ant. The possibilities are endless, so please write down in the comments what's your favorite way to kill him. Now, the reason I love this mission is because if you're quickly getting rid of him, that feels great. And if you're like me in this clip, completely miss him with every turn and fireball I send at him, that still feels great. What I mean by that is that it's enjoyable nonetheless. If you're winning unequivocally, then you can enjoy how good you are at this game. And if you fail miserably, then you can just laugh at how bad you're doing. You're having fun. It's like the mission in Mario Odyssey where you have to try and rebuild Mario's face ground up. Even if you lost, you can laugh at your own creation. It of course is a very strange point to bring up, especially because what is fun for me doesn't mean you're gonna be howling like a chimpanzee, but I can't help but laugh when I look at this clip. Just the pure frustration from my end and the constant mockery Fury Luigi is sending my way. It's funny to me, but when you do finally snipe him down with an excellent jump / swipe / shot, that does feel great too, can't lie. I will say there's not a huge variety in every Fury Luigi encounters, except for of course the stage you're battling in, but I would have liked to see some differences in aggression. For example, imagine if he shot his own fireballs at you, or he started to crawl up walls with a cat suit, or whatever, because the stages that you do fight him on really don't add a lot in making each encounter feel special. They could have, for example, make you chase after Fury Luigi in the pipes on the Island Pipe Path Tower, or jump across the hazardous platforms in the place Rolling Roller Island, or imagine the trickery that would occur if you chased after him in Trick the Tower, stumbling around not knowing exactly where you are. The only Fury Luigi mission that does stand on its own is the chase in Risky Whisker Island. The platforms disappear under you, so you always have to tread carefully and plan your next move cautiously. Other than that, they pick the most boring islands to make you fight on. And when I mean boring, I don't mean these are boring islands to have missions on. It's just in this circumstance, they could have picked some islands that work better with Fury Luigi's design principles. But again, these missions work. It's fun and it can also be satisfying if you're good enough. So all around, one of the better objectives in the game. Now let's discuss one of the worst missions in the game. Fortunately, there are only 3 of them being the cloud missions, basically a Doom type objective where you get flown off to the sky and you're required to kill a bunch of cat biddybutts. If you don't murder them all, then you don't get any cat shine. They also give a star to you at the beginning of these missions to make you faster and kill the biddybutts more easily. Now I asked myself a very important question when it comes to every cat shine I talk about in this video. That question being, what's the entertainment? Other missions in the game, even the mediocre ones, make some attempt to have a clear mission structure, where the challenging platforming is the entertainment, or the exploration is the entertainment, or the freedom is the entertainment. Now, the problem is of course, what I think is entertaining is different for others. So in those situations, I try my best to explain myself in grotesque details as to make my points clear. I have 0 ideas what the entertainment is here. Is it meant to be satisfying, like how it was satisfying to collect the cat shots in the game? In that case, why is the camera perspective a moron? Because the camera is filming at an awkward 45 degree off the side and the controls are not 8 directions like they were in 3D World, that equals Mario running around like a kid's first experience of opium. It's sporadic. So maybe the entertainment is the platforming, right? If that's the case, then I need to ask, am I a plum? Cause these jumps and movements requires 0% of your attention. They are so second nature if you have played any platformers in your life. Is the murder of these innocent cat biddybugs meant to be entertaining? If you watch any Japanese prank shows, then that might be the case, but unfortunately, I don't find the slaughter of these squeaky clean insects to be the prime time of my life, Mr. Miyamoto. And as if I haven't already stumped this puppy enough to death, let me bring up another problem. Immersion. Why break it? The whole idea of Bowser's Fury is that it's a world that keeps you immersed. Even after you picked up the 50th shine, you're still in this world. You aren't suddenly out in the jungle with DK shooting homeless people with bananas. You're still in Lake Lapcat. But for some reason, the cloud missions throw this out the window for the exchange of one of the worst missions in the game. I don't care that they take no time to finish, because it's an objective that sticks out like a sore thumb with acne. Okay, let's take a quick fire round with this next mission. The missing Toad Brigade is what I would call this task, even if that's not the name, and it's a mission that I believe to be patting. This objective can only be done after you've beaten the game once, which means getting 50 shines and being the final boss. After the credits have rolled and you start back on First Step Island, you will most likely meet Toadette, who asks you to find the rest of her Toad crew. For each Toad you find, you get a cat shine. There are 4 to find. Originally, I thought the location of these Toads were hidden, but apparently, they're just written on your map. Of course, players don't know if that's a lost Toad, and that means people will check out this place with excitement, hoping for some awesome platform challenge perhaps, to them being incredibly disappointed when they find out it's just a fat old Toad. I rarely say pointless when I discuss this game, but this is stupid. It does nothing for the player, and even after finding every Toad and expecting some sort of great final mission from Toadette, which would encourage players to return to this mission in a future playthrough, guess what? Nothing! You get nothing! Just like this mission, it does not deserve to be discussed, cause we're out of time. Next! I've been quite negative, and for good reasons of course, but I need to cleanse my soul and discuss my second favorite set of objectives in the game, Blue Coin Puzzle. I can't really explain why this mission sits so well in my heart. Maybe linear missions appeal to me in some unconscious manner, but it certainly doesn't matter to my argument about why it is good. The entertainment of this mission is platforming with small bursts of time. In certain islands, you will come across these P-switches. Jump down and a set of blue coins will appear and a timer will begin counting down. If you don't collect all the current blue coins with the time given to you, you'll have to restart this mission. For every 10 to 15 blue coins you collect, another set of blue coins will spawn, restarting the timer. This cycle repeats until you finally collect all of them, giving you a cat shine. What I like about this mission is just the satisfaction of collecting all of the blue coins in one quick succession. And it can be quite hard to do so. In Slipskate Slope's Blue Coin Puzzle, I think I spent around 5 to 8 minutes trying to complete this mission. I don't know if my brain was melting when I played this, but I just couldn't do it. When I look back at the footage, I can clearly see that every mistake was caused by a state of panic from my end and not some frustrating camera angle or controls. And it's good platforming. I mean, look at these turning floors with spiky walls. Calculating in your head how to traverse through this section while getting every blue coin was a challenge, and that's good. But what I love even more about these missions is the fact they're all different from each other. They aren't just a retread of previous blue coin puzzles, but they all have a unique gimmick about them. For the Flap Trap is most likely players' first experience of this mission, so it acts more like a tutorial for new players. Slipskate Slope requires the player to use the ice skate speed to collect all the blue coins, but leaves you with the limiting controls of the shoe. It's a great little challenge requiring a lot of forward thinking. Triggity Tower used the invisible platforms to make it as difficult to traverse through the island while you collect all the blue coins. Because you're on the clock, you don't have time to plan your next step, so you must just run. And we end off on Pipe Path Tower, a great final mission where you must traverse through the clear pipes to get every blue coin. This probably has the most restrictive timer, so messing up is quite dangerous. But because the speed in which you traverse through the pipes is quite slow, you have the ability to plan out a route in quick succession. That's all of them, and I'm grateful they took their time to make every mission feel as unique as they are. Note that missions in a collectathon like this game does not have to be as expansive and adventurous as the one in games like Mario Galaxy, because the design principles for these games are completely different. Galaxy emphasized tight platforming with a small amount of freedom, and Bowser's Fury emphasizes freedom in exploration with small quick bursts of platforming. So no, the missions are not amazing in Bowser's Fury, but that's not the appeal. It is the exploration, immersion and freedom in how you choose to explore the world that matters. All the missions have to do are feeling worthwhile. Finding toads are not worthwhile because there's no involvement. These small missions like Blue Coin Puzzle do their job brilliantly, even if they are easy small intermissions, because they expect some sort of involvement from the player, and I expect no more. Next, I want to discuss a strange mission. It's only found in one place, and that one place being in Whisker Whisker Island. It's a mission in which Mario needs to kill all the fuzzies, which he can only do by grabbing a potted piranha plant, who will automatically eat any fuzzy if in near proximity. The catch of the mission being the platforms will begin to sink under ya as soon as they're stepped on until they fully disappear. I really like this mission. I just don't get why they wouldn't do more interpretation of this mission in different islands, especially when there's some real stinkers in the game. Nevertheless, it's here and it works. Just look at some of these moments. I'm just barely making these jumps before the donut blocks disappear under me. The other problem with this mission has nothing to do with the objective itself, but rather the controls. For some reason, the run and the grab button are both situated on the same buttons, Y and X to be exact, instead of, you know, being on different buttons. The reason this is frustrating, and this is going to be hard to explain if you haven't played it for yourself, is because whenever you let go of the run button to toggle the camera around using the right stick, which is something you do all the time, if you're holding an item and you decide to press the run button, Mario will just throw the item away from him. So as to not constantly throw away your item, you then have to hold down the run/grab button all the time. This can suck so much whenever you want to change the camera angle. Like in this clip, I'm holding the controller in a very awkward angle, so I can control the right stick with the palm of my hand. I almost fall down because of this. This may sound like a small inconvenience, but note this, you're going to grab and carry a lot of things back and forth. So even though it's a small problem the first time you do it, the 50th time, it's going to be as agonizing as walking through the Gobi Desert while wearing knight armor. But as said, I cannot really complain about the mission structure itself, because it is well handled. Okay, let's see. I spent around 4 minutes discussing one cat shine. Why do I do this to myself? You know what? Let's discuss all of the unique cat shines that only appear once in the game. First we have this one. I hate this one. Next we have this one. I wanna say this one sucks, but I feel this jump to the island so bad that I don't feel like I can say that without feeling like a hypocrite. So, this is the best cat shine in the game. Next we have this one. Are you noticing a pattern with these random missions? You walk to a certain spot and will get rewarded for doing nothing. Why not just give us something of a challenge instead of nothing? However, I can't lie, it's kinda sweet the graffiti Junior paints ya. And now finally, the last random cat shine is actually pretty nice. Go with the flow is a mission where you're supposed to ride this ice pillar across a certain point so you can grab this cat shine that normally is unreachable. Or you could just do this. I just love the freedom here, intentional or not, and it's not that easy, you need some good accuracy. Now let's return to the highlights again. Lost Kittens is a mission for, how do I say this? The dysfunctional impaired. If you love walking, then this mission is just for you. But unfortunately, I don't find myself in that category. What is this mission about? Well, in Lake Lapcat's 3 different regions, that being Lakeside, Ruins and Wasteland, you're going to find 3 different cat mothers, or what Wiki Mario calls Nego parents. I just feel racist saying it for some reason. Every mother has a set of kitten in which she has lost, and it's up to Mario to get every kitten back to the parents. Let's begin with the positives. Helping a lonely crying mother is a good incentive for players to finish a mission. Even if that mission is bollocks. Especially at the end, when you are reunited as a family, you can't help but smile seeing this happy family back together again. The problems arise when you find one of these idiots and decide to bring them back, cause what follows is a long-winded section with nothing happening. What's the point? All you do is walk from A to B, and if the game is very daring, they may demand a little jump from you. I'm sorry to say, but walking and jumping is something you already do before you even start this mission. So I will not say that's an addition for this objective. And you know what's funnier? Dying and doing it all again. My problem is not dying, I have to start a section again. You kinda need the lows to appreciate the highs. My problem is when the mission is so limited, so straightforward, that the game only allows you one path, and that path involves sitting still. This is undoctored footage, people. The only time the game demands something from you is here. You're supposed to balance yourself across this clear pipe. The different angles and tight spaces you have to move is decently engaging, but I can't say it's enough to save these missions from the word tedious. And you know what? I think we discussed the worst of the worst, and we have only above decent missions left to discuss. So let's begin from worst to the best, starting with the battle missions. These battle missions are usually started when Mario jumps on a ground pound switch. This will spawn different enemies in a closed space. You're not allowed to leave when you're in a battle. To escape and get a cat sign, it is required of you to defeat all enemies in this room. Now I just want to quickly discuss enemy designs in Mario games. Very rarely is the focus in mainline Mario games combat. It is always platforming. And therefore, the design philosophy of enemies in a Mario game had to change from something like in Zelda. Because Zelda is a combat/puzzle game, you would expect the enemies to work under that design, which they certainly do. Enemies in Zelda are designed to be fought and approached in a lot of different ways to make encounters with them feel unique every time you fight them. Mario is very different from Zelda, in the fact that Mario is all about the platform. It is never about the combat, because Mario's design has nothing to do with that. Therefore, enemies are often just simple curveballs in your way, simple obstacles that make your platforming a bit harder, or they're designed to help progression in certain sections, like the bob arms here. So I ask, why is there combat in a game that has nothing to do with combat? These missions feel lifeless. It's not even that I'm not engaged in this battle, like I'm not bored, but why use the power of game design for the absolute wrong reasons? It's not even that exciting. If there was a time on, I would at least find it a bit more interesting. There's also one battle where the frame rate just gives up and makes everything look complete vomit inducing. I'm also cutting two different missions in this section, them being in Fort Flaptrap's first and third mission. In the first one, you are required to kill a bunch of cat bullies by pushing them into the lava below, and in the third one, you are supposed to kill a bunch of cat Magikubas. I'll admit the battles are slightly different from the combat ones. In both the fact you can just leave the battle at any time, and there's no button required to start the skirmish. But I still see them being close enough to the combat ones, in just the fact you are required to kill a set bunch of enemies. That's close enough for me to rate it under the same roof. The battle against the cat Magikubas are not very special, but a battle against the cat bullies is quite unique. Cat bullies cannot be killed by a jump or a fireball from Mario, so instead you have to use the island's feature, the red-blue panels. The red-blue panels flip over whenever Mario jumps, so with this design, you can trick cat bullies to chase after you and jump at the right time, making the panels switch sides under a bully, making them fall down to the lava below. It's different from any other battle in the game, because you're actually using platforming to beat these enemies. However, for some reason, you can also just do this. I don't get what the idea was. Maybe it's there for the people struggling with the level. In that case, why couldn't just implement the assist block design in the game? For people who don't know, in 3D World, if a player had died numerous times in a level, the game will grant players an assist block that contained an invincibility leaf. This leaf made beating any level much easier. It was a smart system that would help players who had a tough time beating a certain stage, and it was also great for veterans of the game, as they wouldn't be annoyed by the idea of an easy mode, cause it would require them failing repeatedly. But imagine if the assist block was there at the start of every level. Imagine the annoyance that would ensue if you had to be taunted by this easy mode, even if you're actively doing good. That's the feeling I get from this. And even though the block is invisible, if you have found it once, then the secret is out, and you can always use it again on your next playthrough, even if you're not struggling. What a pity. I think the battle missions are fine. They're not boring, and getting some kills may be done in a satisfying manner, but I can't help but shake the feeling that they could have further expanded on the ideas that already worked. Since we already discussed battles with enemies, let's discuss battles with bosses. There are 4 bosses in the game that I shall discuss, and 2 of them are Boom Boom. Since the bastard wants so much attention, we will give it to him. Boom Boom is unfortunately just a reskin of his 3D World's counterpart. From the cutscene animation to in-game animation, his AI, sound design and his theme song, everything is the same. But he's a cat now. Now I have talked about why I don't think it matters if you're repeating content as long as it's different enough to make it its own thing. I should tell you what happens in the fight, but it's very dull. Jump on him, he spins around, jump on him, he spins around, but this time he's invisible, and then jump on him one last time, here's your cat shine. The second time you fight him, there's a little more going on that deserves praise. Boom Boom himself acts pretty much the same, but this time, the floor is covered in spike traps. Spike traps are platforms that release and reject spikes from the holes after a set time. And yes, I just read that out of Wiki Mario. I'm sorry, I couldn't phrase it better myself. I lay awake at night thinking about my imperfections. Now let's move on. Trying to strike and dodge Boom Boom while worrying about where the spikes are is quite fun. You can even see in this clip that I was close to dying because I wasn't very vigilant. So I like this one. It actually tries, which is something I at very least expect from every objective in the game. But it also succeeds in what it's trying, so fair play. However, it's only downhill from here. Pom Pom is next, and she's just a retread of herself from 3D World as well. Nothing has changed except... wait. Oh yeah, she's a cat now, excuse me. And then we have this trash can. His name is Prince Bully, and he has also come back from 3D World to do the exact same thing. But did you notice something? Yeah, cat is. I refuse to explain what you do against these retreaded bosses, because it is against my moral principles to talk about non-unique designs. If I decided to just retread a bunch of 3D World bosses in this game, why did they pick the deadest one? To this day, I see people praising bosses like Histocrat, Boss Prolder and Motley Boss Plot, and for good reasons. They're unique in design and offer way more in a challenge. But instead they went with the alcoholic couple and my grandma's oven. The only good thing about this is Boom Boom's second fight. Everything else offends me personally. In a way, the enemy battle should technically be higher than the bosses, because as I said before, they are at least trying at the bare minimum. Okay, let's move on. Plessie missions are our second to last cat shine objective we're going to discuss. Now I actually threw 3 different Plessie missions together and called it one, because I thought they all were similar enough to put into one section. These 3 missions being Rabbit Plays Tag, Hurry, and Plessie Metals. I'm of course going to discuss all of these missions separately because they are different from one another. But overall, they're all about capturing something in a short time frame. Let's begin with the Rabbit Tag. In certain regions of the map, you will find these big rabbits lounging about. If you get too close to them, they will start running Mach 10 away from you. So you do the only natural thing you would do in this situation, chase after it with a prehistoric dinosaur and give it a smack on its ass. I always enjoyed rabbit tags in previous Mario titles, and I think rabbit tag with Plessie is also handled very well. It's fun. The only problem is all the encounters feeling the same. That's not a surprise because every encounter with these bunnies is on the ocean. I mean, how do you add to that? Well, I don't know, but the next mission sure do know how. Hurry is the name of this next mission. It's not a great name, so I'll just call it the parkour mission. There's also another mission called Hurry that takes place on land. I didn't include it here because Mario and Plessie's control scheme are so very different from one another that I didn't feel like it made sense to discuss it in the same vein. But don't worry, we'll talk about the grounded version after we've discussed the Plessie version. The parkour missions start with these timer gates. When entered, a small athletic course will show up and a timer of 20 seconds will begin counting down. To get this next cat shine, you'll need to clear the course within this short time frame, or you'll have to start all over again. I'll just begin with a small negative, and that is the fact that Plessie's movement is quite limited. He can move in 360 degrees, he can jump and dive and combine the two to make a super jump. That's about it. This of course is fun in and of itself because Plessie's main role is being a faster means of transportation. But if you start making continuous challenges using Plessie's limited controls, it will soon get pretty repetitive. That was also one of the main reasons I decided to put all the Plessie missions together, because Plessie's move scheme just doesn't allow him to do anything interesting. but going fast. Compared to Mario, who has a large quantity of moveset in his kit and different power-ups to make use of that allows designers to get more wild with the ideas they could put Mario through. And again, Plessie's design in and of itself isn't bad, because he works as a faster means of transportation. I just don't think that giving him 12 missions to do less interesting platforming than Mario and expect him to provide something unique each time is a very smart idea. However, the parkour missions are well handled enough. We have this one, which I think is meant to act like a tutorial. It's hard to say because players could always go for the other ones first, so maybe it's absolutely useless, I can't tell. There's one where you could just skip over the entire course and just aim for the cat shine at the end. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but funny. There's this one where you're supposed to dive on these barricades, which could have made for some interesting platforming, but they forgot to make these barricades fill the entire room, so you could just swim to the side of these. And then we have this one, which I actually do quite like. The platforms themselves are quite tight to traverse through, and falling down from one of these platforms leads to an immediate restart, which is quite nice, because failing a jump in the other still gives you enough time to make it back, but here it's an immediate loss. And more than that, there are extra, more risky platforms to go for that contains huge sums of golden rings, which I always love to go for. It's just like an additional challenge for people who want something a bit more. This course manages to do a lot more than all the other ones, which is quite impressive. Overall, the parkour missions do work, and they're always fun to come back to. Last on the list, we have the Plessie Medallion missions. Scattered around Lake Lapcat, you will find what is called Plessie medals. If you touch it, it will activate a short timer challenge in which you have to collect 5 Plessie medals in a row. For every medal you collect, the timer will restart itself until you have gotten all of them. I don't know what I can say that I haven't already said with the parkour missions. Plessie's limited controls doesn't help him here either. Every new Plessie medal feels the same as the last one, but it's still fun. They change it up a tiny bit by sometimes requiring the player to walk on land to receive some medals, only then to ride Plessie out to get the rest. It's not a significant enough change up from the rest, but I bet the designers were doing the best they could with what they were working with. I generally don't know what I can say. These are so eerily similar to the parkour missions that I will just end this segment by saying the same thing I said the last time. Overall, the Plessie medals do work and they're always fun to come back to. So all in all, the Plessie missions are fun. They're not brainless, and I appreciate they tried doing something with Plessie. That wasn't just him as a vehicle to get the player around the world, but they really lack creativity, which is really more an issue with Plessie's design itself. Now let's move on to the final Catshine objective. The Grounded Mario Hurry missions are back as promised, and as said, I will call these the parkour missions from now on. For all the problems Plessie's parkour missions came with, that's not anymore an issue here. All the courses feel unique from each other, so unique in fact that I could probably mention every course in detail, where they are located, how many there are, and what you do for every course. Some of the other objectives in the game fail at that aspect, because they all mush together into one big pile of unoriginality. They do not care to distinguish themselves from the rest. Something important to note is the fact that these courses are designed to be beaten even as small Mario. That means if you're using Mario's cat suit, you have a much easier advantage. I don't say that as a negative, because it is still fun to experiment with what you can do. Like a Crisb climb castle, you're supposed to use the propeller box to fly onto these spinning platforms so you can reach the top of this small tower. Or you can do what I did here and use the catsuit's wall climbing abilities to skip a huge chunk of this section. Again, if this was intentionally planned for or not, it really doesn't matter, because Mario's catsuit was designed for this, so it still collides with developers' intention. And it's fun to discover these skips. You could say it ruins platform-based challenges, but I will argue that on substitute playthroughs, it will inevitably become easy to go through. So why not make it interesting by letting players be creative with the tools they've been given? And it's not because focused challenges cannot be fun, I'm just insisting on Bowser's Fury has another priority. Here's another scenario. In Trickety Tower's parkour mission, you can see a clear outline of where you're supposed to go. But instead, I climbed up the side of the tower and got the cat shine. I learned this trick from a speedrunner. The last one I'll mention in detail is in Risky Whisker Island. This is probably my favorite cat shine in the game. This course is chaotic. The donut blocks you walk on fall on the air, and magic Koopas spawn in and try to shoot you down. But the best thing are these These are kick bombs. If you hit them, you can launch them in any direction you want, and they will decimate any walls or enemies it gets in contact with. For some reason, I didn't make any use of them, which is weird. Like even here, I kicked the ball right into the wall, blasting it open, which opens up a shortcut, but I don't even use it. I don't know if I turned off my brain for a moment, but it's funny. There are also others that are good to briefly mention, like Mount Magmeow's use of switchboards and cat fuzzlers, or Rolling Roller Island's use of lava and spinning platforms, and Pounce Bounce Island's use of jump panels. The only one that doesn't really work for me is this one at the falls. If you don't have a cat suit, you'll probably have a good time with this one, but if you have one, the path is literally spelled out before you. I know that sounds contradicted to what I said earlier about the cat suit's use, but my point was that experiment with the platforming, by for example going off the beaten path, was rewarding, cause the game was actively allowing players to do whatever they want without them being told. This one, however, does actively tell you a faster way to beat this course, and I would wish they didn't. I bet if the pillar in this platform challenge was left out, people would still be able to experiment with the platforms and come up with a fast solution to the top. There's actually 2 more cat shines I put in this category, which were these cat wheel missions. They work pretty much the same as the parkour missions, the only thing being they are a lot shorter, and the cat shine is always visible, even if you haven't spinned the wheel to activate the platforms. I would say these objectives are not that special, but I do appreciate the fact you can get them by using Plessie. Other than that, I don't think I can really say that much more about them. But all of that aside, these missions are all great. They're simple in the fact they don't take any time to do, and yet they still succeed by being unique in gameplay. And that's that. I looked at every cat shine in the game. So a few bad ones, a lot of mediocre ones, and a nice pair of memorable ones. And as hard as I may have been to some of these missions, know that it still works. Even the bad ones. I cannot say they are time wasters, cause they are over before you even realize it. And that's a huge relief. I mean, imagine being stuck doing some objective that never ends. Where a majority of the time doing the mission is just you sitting and waiting for something to happen. I mean, that would be ridiculous. Well, thankfully, we don't have that in this game. Or do we? I've kept something from all of you. I waited for the perfect moment to reveal this little nugget. Or rather, big nugget. You may have had a looming question in the back of your head. A question containing a very special figure to this game. You see, as much as I may have complained and nitpicked certain aspects of the game, I would still consider those mistakes invalid to the amount of good this game has to offer. But there's still one more egg in the basket, ready to be cracked open and discussed. This egg has been in the video all over the place. It has been waiting for its reveal. It has been there from the start of the game, and it will always be there at the end. It has been in promotions, in the cover art of the game, even the title itself. I'm talking about Bowser's Fury, Fury Bowser. This guy haunts my dream. How can an idea so brilliant be executed so badly? Fury Bowser's problems are everywhere, from the performance of the game to its AI to the worst of the very worst of the cat shine missions, and it deserves to be examined thoroughly. Fury Bowser was the main attraction to a lot of people when this game was first shown, and with good reasons. The idea of having to deal with a behemoth beyond your power to defeat, a creature chasing you down wherever you decided to hide, making every platform challenge even harder now to beat, was in and of itself a big innovation from previous Mario titles. Never had Mario's core design principle of platforming changed to a stressful task of evading. This is truly where Fury Bowser shines the most. But as I mentioned, this was an idea. Questions should be asked if they succeeded, and unfortunately, I haven't seen anyone try and ask this. And this is very common when it comes to online discussion about video games these days. People often praise something highly when the idea in something seems so big and expansive, but will rarely ask themselves if this idea succeeded. This happened with games like Breath of the Wild. People saw this big open world and were sold before they even had played it. This led to some people who had played it took a deep look into the game, like Joseph Anderson, to point out huge problems that people hadn't even thought about were there. This is also why a game like Super Mario 3D World would be criticized and called boring, because it didn't have a strong enough premise to interest people. But when released, the game proved itself to succeed in every measure. But again, the people had spoken. So before I talk about all the wrong Fury Bowser presents, let's discuss when idea succeeded. One of the core things Nintendo seemed to press down upon was Fury Bowser was supposed to be a scary badass, and they absolutely nailed that aspect. This is mostly credited to the design of Fury Bowser and the music that accompanies him. Something about the black body and the red hair just fits him like a glove. Added with his piercing glowing white eyes, staring you down no matter where you are, gives a real discomfort whenever he's around. The texture on his body is also great. Because he has been corrupted by the black goop, he has this muddy texture about him that makes him look even more disgusting. Fury Bowser's music is another big plus. Being a young teenager in his metal face and hearing this is quite a surprise. To me, it sounds like they took a lot of inspiration from early metal bands. Like the riffs give me a lot of Metallica vibes. But they still managed to make it all feel like it's Bowser by adding in his classic choir. You can almost say Bowser represents the orchestrated aspect, whereas the black goop is meant to resemble the metal parts. They even managed to keep the theme song for Fury Bowser different and more interesting for every fight you have against him in your Goku phase. Which is not something they needed to do, but still did. Another idea that also should be complimented is the additional platforms the game adds in whenever Fury Bowser appears in the game. If you remember, this was one of the things they highlighted when Nintendo of America showcased the game for the first time. They said his falling spikes would change the terrain. If you don't get what is neat about that, don't worry, I'll explain. What is cool about these spikes is the fact that areas you have ventured off to previously can completely change with the spike platforms added. For example, here you can see me jumping over a gap of water using the spikes, or here I'm getting a boomerang flower from a mystery box, which I can only get cause there is a spike right underneath the mystery box. These are extremely bad examples, but the reason for that is because the disaster spikes idea also failed in execution, but I'll talk about that a bit later on. Just know I'm complimenting the idea they went with, because it is good. The idea of breaking the world open with these new platforms are a good idea, and they almost had it, but again, I'll show how it fell flat on its face. And my last compliment is probably the biggest success in the Fury Bowser department. If the sections where you're nothing compared to this ginormous beast, then the Giga Bell brawls are finally the time you get to beat the leveling crap out of him. These encounters are not just a success in this game, but also a big interesting step from all the previous Mario bosses in the series. The first plus is the fact that all the boss battles you have with Fury Bowser are original. They're not recycled content from another game, unlike Boom Boom, Pom Pom and Canhead. But it's not just that they're original, it's the fact they're all different from each other. Each encounter introduces a new element to the fight that makes it more memorable and engaging than the last one you had. I'm going to discuss this, but I first want to explain what happens in these battles. To actually fight Fury Bowser, you need to collect a set amount of cat shards so you can reawaken the Giga Bells. These Giga Bells allow Mario to enter his final form, a big cat. As a big cat, you still have all the same moveset as normal Mario, and with this newfound power, you now finally have the chance to bully Bowser. How you fight him is very different from all the other Bowser battles in the series. They're not the 3 hits you're dead cycle Nintendo have been using over the last 30 years, which were never a bad thing. I'm just stating the obvious difference, which is Bowser has a health meter now. This health meter can only be drained down if you hit Fury Bowser right in the gullet, which is very nicely shown with the yellow marker on his body. Now, as I said previously, every fight improves from the last one in both quality and freedom. So let's begin with the first one and slowly start working down the fights. The first battle you have against Fury Bowser is meant to be the tutorial for the player. Therefore, it's not very interesting or as difficult as the other ones we're gonna see later on, which is fine. Basically, Bowser himself has 2 attacks he uses in the beginning. Fire Blast, a long-reaching projectile that he swings back and forth, hurting Mario if touched, and Koopa Smashed. I made up that name, I know, very clever, very clever. An attack in which Fury Bowser jumps above the player and tries to crush him with his pointy spikes. If he doesn't hit you with that, a shockwave or fire will shoot around him in a circle, damaging the player. There's two ways of hurting Bowser. You can either claw swipe him with your catsuit, which deals minimal damage, but that's because it's meant to make the battles fair and not over within a second. Or you can ground pound him when he is on his back, hiding inside his shell. You only get this opportunity when he does his Koopa Smash. This is the preferred way to hurt Bowser, because it's risk-free and it deals the most damage out of any other attack you use against him. Again, this first fight is a tutorial, so it's just easing the player in. The second time you fight him, Fury Bowser will have the ability to retract himself in his shell and roll towards you on his side, dealing damage to you in the process. He will also make black goo appear beneath him wherever he rolls, which is harder for Mario to traverse on. It's a good attack in and of itself, even if the camera can't follow where Fury Bowser is going, often leaving you to get hit without even knowing. But this attack gets very interesting when you realize you can hit Bowser on his belly. It requires very accurate timing getting this to land, because Bowser moves extremely fast while he is in this motion. But it's extremely rewarding, because when hit, he will land on his back, allowing you to ground pound him, dealing immense damage. I like this risk versus reward system, because it's not necessary to do it, you can simply evade him, but again it builds into the new players versus experienced veterans. If you're struggling, just avoid him, but if you want an additional challenge, go for it. Let's keep this train going. Third time you fight him, he'll make it rain with disaster spikes. Red markers will indicate where they will land, and you take damage if they manage to hit you. I wouldn't say this is a very good attack from Bowser's end. They are fairly easy to avoid, and that's because the indicated red markers stay for very long, which I think gives the player a bit too much time to think and move to a safer position. Maybe they could change it so the sparks try to land where you currently are standing, but will miss if the player is constantly moving, which would force a little bit of stress on the player, and maybe Fury Bowser does an additional attack while this is happening, so you need to multitask. I don't know. So even though the spikes are not a very good attack in of itself, I still love them. Because what they do is giving the player the ability to lift the spikes up from the ground and throw them back at Bowser. If you hit him, he will recoil back in his shell and will make himself available for a ground pound. But because Bowser has sent so many disaster spikes after you, you can just keep throwing spikes after them. In this clip, you can simply throw 4 different spikes at them to then ground pound him and claw swipe him, finishing the fight within 30 seconds. It's extremely fun to play ping pong with Bowser like this, because he doesn't even get one attack in. And I know that some may think this is a bit easy, which it is, but don't worry, because they do fix this mistake. In future fights, after Fury Bowser rains down his spikes, he will usually jump way across the map. And because throwing spikes doesn't send them that far, it means you'll have to chase after him carrying one of your spikes across with you, to then launch it after Bowser when you're at a decent distance from him. It's a good solution, and it's still a cool exploit to use even if you can't be as greedy with it as you want. The fourth and final time you fight Fury Bowser, he'll get his very last attack. Whenever Bowser is far off in the distance, he will sometimes send a swarm of fireballs and explosive kickballs at you. The fireballs are lethal, but kickballs have a short duration where they can be kicked back at Bowser, dealing damage and flipping him over. If the kickballs start flashing red, then they will damage you if they manage to touch you. The time of this one can be quite difficult to land, but it again is an optional risk you can take if you fancy a challenge. Now, even though these are all the significant changes we see throughout Bowser's battles, this all accumulates into one final great battle. I'm not talking about the battle you have with him when you are 50 cat shines. No, I'm talking about the one you have when you collect all of the cat shines. All the other battles in the game see you fight Bowser with the lowest amount of health he possibly can have. But in his final form, he has maximum health. Finally given an actual fight. He uses all of his moves in this because he doesn't just die within a minute. And it can actually be quite difficult. Something I didn't mention is the fact that if you get hit, you lose your cat suit and you turn into big regular Mario. If you get hit once more, you become big small Mario, and if you get hit one more time, you die. It's basic Mario. If you collect a Giga Bell while in battle, they will still respawn after some time, but in the last fight against Fury Bowser, you only get 3 chances of holding onto the cat suit. If you lose it more than that, you'll have to beat him as regular Mario. That's why I know that as being difficult. So great fights in general. But we're not actually done. We still need to talk about 2 more boss fights in the game. After defeating Fury Bowser for the last time, his black goo will be expelled and we see Bowser's final form. Giant Bowser, yeah, it's not very original. But he traps all the Giga Bells in a bubble, which means we don't have a chance to beat him as Giga Mario. This boss fight against him is a lot more aligned to previous Bowser battles in the series, which means you have to hit him a set amount of times to defeat him. The fight takes place on open water, where the only way of beating him is riding Plessie, because he's fast enough to chase after him. While chasing him down, Giant Bowser will send torpedo spikes, fireballs and fire blast after you, damaging you in the process. If players traverse through the chaos without getting hit, they will have an opportunity to ride up a ramp and smash Bowser's bubble ball against him. Beating him requires hitting him 4 times. As said previously, these are a lot closer to previous Bowser fights in the series, but that isn't a criticism, cause they do it well here. Especially the second time you fight him in this form, it can be quite challenging jumping over the torpedo spikes while not taking damage, to then the satisfaction of smacking the bubble ball into Bowser. I will say the only problem are the power-ups ruining the challenge. When fighting Fury Bowser, there's a risk of losing the cat suit you're wearing, and even getting a game over, and that's because there are a shortage of Giga Bells you can use in the fights. Meanwhile, in the Plessie Bowser fight, you have the ability to use the power-up storage at any time in the fight, which means if you have taken damage even once, you can just pick up any power-up you have been collecting throughout the game and replenish all your health. I shouldn't state how dumb this is. I mean, it seems like they tried to implement this to help people who were maybe struggling with the fight, but it's a very simple solution for this problem that they already implemented in this battle. They give you an opportunity for a power-up in the middle of the fight, right there. Instead of letting the player pause the action anytime they want to let them replenish all their health, alternatively, cut out the power-up storage when you're fighting and make people work for their chance of survival. Otherwise, this fight is still very engaging. And so are all the boss fights against Fury Bowser and Giant Bowser. They are a huge reason for me to come back and play the game, and I'll say it's probably the best thing in this game. But we're not done. We still need to discuss how Fury Bowser acts when you're not fighting him, aka when he's chasing you down. So, the idea was making Fury Bowser a force that couldn't be reckoned with, a being that would always hunt you down no matter how hard you tried fleeing from him. How well did that work out for them? Well, it worked out for me one time. In this clip, I'm trying to reach the boss found in Mount Magmeow when Fury Bowser suddenly steps in and messes up everything. You can see I'm constantly taking damage, there's fire raining from the sky, platforms are disappearing right under me, and I suddenly lose my footing and fall down to my death. This is Fury Bowser at its peak. He's causing me stress, I'm worrying how I'm going to handle this situation, and that makes me take damage. I'm using the platforms Fury Bowser sends down, everything is working in tune. But this only happened once while I captured footage for this video. Why is that? You see, there's actually a way to make Fury Bowser completely disappear from the game, making his intimidating aura disappear in one fell swoop. Whenever Fury Bowser awakens from his Fury Sun form to cause havoc around Lake Lapcat, he will disappear after only a minute has gone by. But there's a dumber, more idiotic way to make him go away. It's not a glitch, it's a core part of the design of this game, which you get told from the very beginning. If you collect any cat shine in the game while Fury Bowser is active, then he will go away. Don't worry, I shall explain. Finding and getting cat shines in this game is very easy, and that isn't a problem for me. That's what they designed the game around, and I believe I have shown enough evidence in this video to prove how they managed to make that work. However, Fury Bowser does not go along with this design. Because cat shines are so easy to get, it pretty much makes Fury Bowser non-existent in your playthroughs, because as soon as he pops in, you can just grab a cat shine and make him go away, completely erasing his function of the game, which was adding stress and tension. This baffles my mind. I can only assume they did this to make the game more accessible for children who were maybe struggling with Fury Bowser. However, this decision affects everyone on the other side of the spectrum, you know, the people who aren't brain dead. If you want a solution, let me give you one. Just like you had an option to tweak Bowser Jr.'s behavior in the game to a setting that benefited you. For example, if you were struggling with the game, you could change him to help a lot, and if you didn't want any help at all, you could simply turn him off. How about doing the same for Fury Bowser? Maybe allow a system where you could change Fury Bowser's behavior. You could do several things. Maybe the option would allow you to change how many cat shines you would need to collect to make him go away. Or maybe the time window between each encounter could be longer, like 3 to 5 minutes. Let's take the first example. If you were struggling with Fury Bowser, you could perhaps change the difficulty settings to easy, which requires the player to collect only one cat shine to make Bowser go away. If you wanted a decent challenge, you could change it to medium difficulty, requiring you to get 2 to 3 cat shines. And finally, if you're an alpha sigma male non-simping virgin gamer who wants the real stuff, you get a hard mode, where you are required to collect 4 to 5 cat shine. I would usually never suggest a difficulty settings for any Mario game, and that reason is mainly because most games in the series don't need it. Mario titles are built for newcomers, yet let veterans be creative with the controls or the skips. But when you introduce a giant AI creature that the whole game is centered around, which only works in its design if the player is atrocious at the game, then I would suggest an option in difficulty. And even if you don't pick up any cat shines, Fury Bowser has a timer for 1 minute that makes him leave. I watched my own clips and numerous of other people's clips, and Bowser always goes away after roughly 1 minute. What is this? This is why I said the disaster spikes was a great idea, but failed. It's because the disaster spikes are only present if Fury Bowser is alive and kicking, which he only is for 1 minute and then gets bored and leaves. You never have a chance to really utilize your Fury platforms in any creative way, which really sucks. But this issue is small compared to the thing I'm about to discuss. You see, I lied earlier when I said we had talked about all the cat shines in the game. I intentionally left one more category of missions out to be discussed here, because these missions I'm about to discuss are truly the worst of the very worst Bowser's Fury has to offer. Tedium is the word of the day, and I will explain why. Let me introduce you to these. These are Fury blocks. They are metallic boxes with Bowser's face on them. They cannot be destroyed by Mario. Rather, only a fire blast from Fury Bowser himself can crack these open. When opened, they will always lead to a cat shine. They are scattered everywhere like Lapcat. And they annoy me. Let me tell you what happened the first time I played Bowser's Fury. Early in the game, I discovered the Fury blocks, and very quickly I discovered that only Bowser could blast these open. You hope that this will lead to something exciting like a small platforming challenge, maybe some cool secrets of the world, whatever, just anything. Nothing. They give you nothing but a cat shine. I was so confused because I cannot for the life of me understand what they were trying to do, and after some time I simply stopped going after these. So after beating the main section and collecting all of the actual worthwhile cat shines, all I had left to 100% the game was getting the last of the Fury blocks. I spent over an hour waiting around for Fury Bowser to wake up, because let me remind you, every time you grab one of these cat shines within these Fury blocks, Bowser will just go away, even if you don't want him to. After some time, I tried speeding up the process by teleporting around the map, find the specific locations the Fury blocks were hidden, to then trying to align Fury Bowser up with the hopes of him blowing up these darn blocks, which doesn't even work sometimes, cause his AI can straight up not understand what angle he should go after you from. And if you are lucky to get some Fury blocks blasted in a row, he will sometimes just go away. After 1 minute, we're setting the timer for when he appears again, because someone forgot to add a difficulty setting. But don't worry, you can make him respawn anytime you want, if you have bought a Bowser amiibo. I just slapped myself in the face. There's much wrong in this. First of all, waiting is not a worthwhile gameplay addition. It's just boring. Second of all, even if 90% of this mission wasn't spent waiting around for Fury Bowser to appear again and again and again, they're still boring. They give you nothing. A cat shine is nothing without a challenge to it. And don't say standing behind a spike waiting for Fury Bowser to do his thing is worthwhile gameplay. Especially not when they do it 15 times with no changes. And third of all, buying a toy that fixes one of the game's main problem is the shitest idea yet to ban. Whoever created amiibos deserved the classic Sicilian bull torture method, because this is an absolute travesty. Imagine if they made an amiibo that will fix Bowser Fury performance. Would you be mad? I mean, how dare they? Before moving on, I just want to mention the fact that these Gazing Down the Islands missions are the same as the normal Fury Blocks missions. The only difference is you walk for a bit. Exciting times we live in. Unfortunately, we're still not done. We have discussed 95 cat shines and we need to address the last 5. Lucky Isle missions are the very last cat shines that needs to be addressed. After beating the mainline story, different isles will appear around the map whenever Fury Bowser's alive and walking. So you know what that means? It means sitting around and wait some more. How lovely! These act pretty much the same as the Fury Blocks. Only difference being, you cannot collect more than 1 cat shine in a row. Whereas several different Fury Blocks around the map could be blasted open within the time frame Bowser was awake, if you were quick enough at least, where you could then take the cat shine within each one after Fury Bowser had gone away. So these cat shine isles are even worse than the Fury Blocks. So that leaves 20 absolute cancer cat shines to collect. How do we fix that? Well, here's a very simple solution. To delete them. Is hitting that 100 mark just that important? Because it really isn't. They must have run out of time and felt like they needed to bring the cat shine number to a perfect amount, and to hit their goal they made a bunch of filler missions. I mean, think about it. 20%, a fifth of the cat shines in the game are these horrible Fury Bowser missions. The closest set of missions in the game that rivals that are the 5 cat shell missions, and they only fill up 12% of the game. And they're actually fun to do. I of course do not know the situation they're in when making these missions, and if it is a question of time restraints, then I feel immense sympathy for them. It's never a nice feeling when you're stressed and still have a lot of work to take care of. But no matter how you slice it, the missions requiring Fury Bowser's help are badly designed. I just want to take up 2 opposing arguments that I often hear when discussing bad missions in collectathons. First one being, at least it's something instead of nothing. This is a sentiment that I do not understand, because you know they gotta spend the time they had making the missions that already are not the best in Bowser's Fury and made them better, instead of working on completely new missions that are inevitably going to suck. And the second argument I hear sometimes being brought up is, if you don't like the bad missions, just don't do it. It's a collectathon after all. Imagine you got an apple with rotten spots on it. Wouldn't you complain that there are only certain parts of the apple you can enjoy? Or would you just say, if you don't like the bad spots, just don't eat it. It's an apple after all. What's wrong with ya? Fury Bowser was so close being something special. People have framed him as something special, but the evidence favors the opposite of that. I do love the idea, and I'm saddened by the fact it didn't work. But this issue doesn't make the game a failure. The world in Bowser's Fury is the most immersive Mario has ever been. The atmosphere of Lake Lapcat is one of bliss. The missions explode with creativity, and I believe Nintendo understood the positives of what Odyssey was going for with the Power Moons, and still managed to fix the mistakes that came along with them as a result. The feeling of having Fury Bowser always come back to haunt you, even if he doesn't do a good job of that, feels fun. And the juxtaposition of running from Bowser to beating him down is handled mostly well. People say this is just a taste of what to come, and I definitely believe this isn't the last of what we're going to see of Bowser's Fury's idea, but to suggest that Bowser's Fury is just a little game compared to everything else in the Mario series is ludicrous to me. Bowser's Fury isn't a very long game. It takes me 2 hours to 100% complete it. But I don't get why that has become a negative these days, since when has quality been associated with the time it takes to do everything in a game? Isn't it also based on how replayable it is? And I believe Bowser's Fury is incredibly replayable. And I believe I have much more to say, and I've literally been discussing a children's game for over an hour, so maybe it's best if I give some final words. I love Bowser's Fury, and I think it deserves being up there with the best of the Mario Collectathon games. It may not be as big and expansive as Odyssey, But I believe it doesn't need to be that. It just needs to be concise. Here's for another great Mario game in the future. I just want to thank anyone who has stuck through to the end with me here. Making this video was really hard. I didn't even know this video was going to be this long when I first started this project, which was almost 4 months ago. This video was more like an experiment I took very seriously, mind you. And I'm interested in seeing what this video takes me content-wise. I'll probably start working on some smaller essay videos again, and I hope I can start uploading somewhat consistently. I don't like being away from video making too long. Which is probably a good segue into the last thing I'll say, which is I'm sorry for the long wait. It has been over a year since my last upload, which is shocking to say the least. Does not feel like a year ago, but it is what it is. I promise I won't take such a hiatus in the future, at least without notifying you. And yeah, that's that. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!